So, when I was preparing this review, I was surprised to learn that this is not the first sequel to A Christmas Story. In fact, there are actually 8 different movies about the Ralphie Parker character that originally appeared in the stories by Gene Shepard. In a way, you can basically say there is a Ralphie Parker cinematic universe. Now, this new sequel to A Christmas Story isn't going to match the level of success as the original or even come close. But I do think that finally they have come up with a movie that people will associate with the character of Ralphie Parker and will actually stay in people's memory as opposed to all those other movies people seem to have forgotten about. Now, this new sequel to A Christmas Story brings back a lot of the same cast members, particularly Peter Billingsley, who is back to play Ralphie Parker. He also produces the film alongside Vince Vaughn, and he co-wrote the story. The movie takes place approximately 33 years after the original one, which puts the plotline in the year 1973. Now, just as the old film had the nostalgic factor of really transporting you into the world of middle America in the 1940s, this film transports you into the world of the 1970s, complete with the wild wallpaper patterns that people had back then, as well as green telephones. In this film, we find Ralphie Parker as a middle-aged man who is living with his wife and 2 children in Chicago. He aspires to publish a novel, and he has taken a year off from his day job in order to try to fulfill that dream. Now, when we're first introduced to Ralphie and his family at the beginning of the movie, we see that Ralphie has been going to different publishers, but has had no luck getting the manuscript for his novel published. He's nearing the end of his deadline, which is the end of the year, before he will give up and go back to his day job. Now, just when he's preparing for his parents to come into Chicago, where him and his family are living and spend the holidays together, he learns of his father's sudden and tragic passing. Instead of hosting Christmas at his home in Chicago, Ralphie decides to go to his childhood home that we're familiar with from the original Christmas Story movie and spend the holidays with his mother. He's tasked with creating a meaningful holiday celebration for his family, while also worrying about that approaching deadline for when he needs his novel published. Along the way in his hometown, he reconnects with his childhood friends that we know from the original film. Now, this movie could have easily rehashed the plot of the original Christmas Story film, and that's what I thought they were going to do. I thought it was basically going to be about one of his children wanting something for Christmas the way he wanted the Red Ryder BB gun, and just have it take place in the 1970s instead. That is not what they did with this film, and that is something that I really appreciate. This new film is not about children wanting things for Christmas, although that is part of the plot too. Ultimately, it is a story about Ralphie as an adult wanting to have a good Christmas celebration for his family. It's a story about loss, it's a story about nostalgia, it's a story about fatherhood, and even though it has its own self-contained story, it does pay homages to the original film throughout. There's scenes that have some of the same camera angles I noticed watching the movies back to back, like they're kind of trying to emulate some of the scenes from the original film. There's also the narration of Ralphie, because this is presented as sort of his memoir looking back on his life, just like they did with the first movie. And there are a couple of those notable cheesy dream sequences when Ralphie begins to daydream. This film has all of those humorous moments about a dysfunctional, typical middle American family at Christmas time. I found myself, as someone from the Midwest, relating to a lot of the jokes that were in it, and I think a lot of people will appreciate that about this movie, just as they did with the original. The film is cozy, it's nostalgic, and it does have that dash of irreverent humor as well. Now, there are times in the movie where I felt like they leaned on the original as sort of a crutch. There are these moments where Ralphie goes into the attic and he finds these old props that you'll recognize from the original film. I felt like some of that stuff was kind of shoehorned into the movie just so people would see, like, oh, there's that thing that I remember from the original. There's also several points in the movie where they have footage from the original film or even just audio clips that they play from the original film, and this is something that I just think is overdone in this film. But in the end, it does really tie everything together, even if it's a little predictable. It is sort of like a beautiful little Christmas package all tied up together by the end, and I think they did a pretty nice job at tying it together with the first film, having some sentimental moments as well as the humorous moments, and letting it just be this pleasant, nostalgic Christmas film. Now, this movie cannot possibly match the predecessor, and I think the original Christmas Story movie is a much better film than this one. That being said, I liked it. I think it's a great film to watch for the holidays. It's on HBO Max. You don't have to go out to the theater. It's funny, it's heartfelt, it's full of nostalgic charm, and I think it should be at the top of your holiday binge list this year. So, have you seen A Christmas Story Christmas? Let me know what your thoughts were down in the comment section below. As always, if you liked this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Also, subscribe to this YouTube channel to stay up to date with all things streaming. Merry Christmas, everybody. Bye-bye.